Smoke swirled. Cigars glowed in the darkness. Around the mahogany table, 12 figures sat, their faces obscured. This was the Consortium, masters of industry, finance, media, invisible hands on the levers of power. They met rarely, these titans, only when the world needed reshaping. Tonight, the air crackled with urgency. Their plan, decades in the making, hung in the balance. The stakes had never been higher. A man spoke, his voice a gravelly whisper, "He's ready." Agreement rippled around the table, their chosen instrument, a pawn with the potential to become a king. Or so they believed. The room fell silent. Only the crackling fire disturbed the stillness. Outside, a storm brewed, mirroring the turmoil the Consortium was about to unleash upon the world. He was brash, he was bold, he was everything they needed. Donald Trump, a name synonymous with wealth, ambition, and a certain disregard for convention. The perfect puppet. The Consortium had watched him for years, his rise in the New York real estate market, his forays into the world of entertainment, his hunger for the spotlight, all carefully orchestrated, nudged along by invisible hands. They provided capital when he needed it, ensured favorable coverage in their media outlets, whispered in the ears of those in power. Trump, oblivious, thought he was a self-made man. He was nothing more than a tool they would use to dismantle the world order and rebuild it in their image, an image where power rested solely in their hands. The year was 1987. Ronald Reagan was president. The Cold War raged. Trump, a rising star in the New York skyline, received an invitation he couldn't refuse. A weekend retreat in the Arizona desert, an exclusive gathering of the world's elite. He jumped at the chance, rubbing shoulders with titans of industry, heads of state. But the true power brokers remained hidden, observing him from the shadows, evaluating his worthiness. A deal was struck that weekend. A Faustian bargain. The Consortium would elevate Trump to unimaginable heights. In return, he would become their vessel, their voice on the world stage. Trump, blinded by ambition, readily agreed. He had no idea the forces he was aligning himself with, nor the chaos he was about to unleash. The 1990s were a time of excess. The Berlin Wall had fallen. The Soviet Union had collapsed. America stood triumphant. And Donald Trump, fueled by the Consortium's backing, became a symbol of that excess. His casinos rose from the Atlantic City boardwalk, monuments to extravagance and questionable taste. His name became synonymous with luxury, his face plastered on every tabloid. He was living the American dream, or so it seemed. Behind the facade of wealth and success, Trump was drowning. His businesses floundered, his personal life imploded. He was on the verge of ruin. And the Consortium watched, waiting for the perfect moment to swoop in and collect their due. The Phoenix, as they called him, would rise from the ashes, but he would be forever indebted to his shadowy benefactors. The new millennium dawned, the internet age arrived, information flowed freely, or so it appeared. The Consortium, however, understood the power of perception. They knew that controlling the narrative was as potent as controlling armies. Their influence permeated the media landscape. Newspapers, television networks, social media platforms, all owned by conglomerates with ties to the Consortium, all pushing their agenda, subtly, insidiously. Dissent was silenced. Opposing voices were discredited. The public was fed a steady diet of fear and outrage, primed to embrace a savior, a strong man who promised to restore order to a world teetering on the brink. Enter Donald Trump. His every utterance, no matter how outrageous, was amplified by the media machine. His flaws were spun into strengths, his lies were presented as truth. The people, hungry for change, lapped it up. The year is 2016. The world watches in disbelief as Donald Trump, reality TV star, real estate mogul, and puppet of the Consortium, ascends to the presidency of the United States. The unthinkable has happened, or has it? For the Consortium, it was all according to plan. Decades of meticulous planning had culminated in this moment. They now had their man in the Oval Office, ready to enact their will. Trump, out of his depth and easily manipulated, became a bull in a china shop of international relations, alienating allies, embracing dictators, upending decades of carefully crafted diplomacy. The world held its breath. The global order, already fragile, teetered on the brink of collapse. The years that followed were a blur of chaos and confusion. Trump, unconstrained by experience or expertise, lurched from one crisis to the next. The media, now a weapon in the hands of the Consortium, fanned the flames of division. Conspiracy theories flourished. Trust in institutions eroded. The very fabric of society seemed to be unraveling, and the world watched in horror as the most powerful nation on earth descended into disarray. The Consortium, however, remained unfazed. The chaos was all part of the plan, a controlled demolition of the existing order. Out of the ashes, they would build a new world, a world where they reigned supreme. But they had underestimated the resilience of democracy, the power of the people, and the determination of those who refused to be silenced. The game is still afoot. The puppet master's strings are still being pulled. But the world is waking up. People are beginning to see the truth, the connections, the manipulations. The Consortium, once shrouded in secrecy, is slowly being dragged into the light. Their machinations exposed, their motives questioned, their power, while still formidable, is waning. The battle for the future is far from over, but one thing is certain: the people will no longer be pawns in their game. The era of the puppet master is drawing to a close. The question is, what will rise in its place?